The iconic music scene of May 1965 is impossible to find today. May 1965 is filled with music, fashion, and live performances that reflect the feeling of a bright, creative modern world where anything is possible. A new surrealistic sound dripping in imagery emerges that no one saw coming. A musician who paints the cultural changes with vivid imagery and a never-before-heard sound. Marianne Faithfull describes his music. The zeitgeist streamed through him like electricity. Imagine you are driving down the street heading home after work and the radio is blaring out your favorite music on a beautiful spring day in 1965. The local DJ is king in May 1965, and what he plays has an impact on which music is going to make it to the masses. And here is what the DJ at your local radio station in the US might be playing. The Rolling Stones song, The Last Time. After the Stones, you might hear music by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, including Ooh Baby or the Supremes' Back in My Arms Again. You are excited to head out to the local record store to check out the latest singles and meet up with friends. As you pick out your favorite mod outfit, you turn on your record player and put on your favorite new single by the Guess Who, Shakin' All Over. Soon you head out the door and get into your Mustang. The British invasion songs being played in record stores, on the radio, and on musical variety shows are Marianne Faithfull's This Little Bird. The Animals, Bring It On Home to Me.
Bring your sweet love in.
The Kinks' Tired of Waiting for You.
So tired of waiting.
And Manfred Mann has a hit with Oh No Not My Baby.
Oh no, not my baby.
In the US in May 1965, you might be working as a secretary, managing schedules and paperwork with a yearly salary ranging from $3,400 to $4,800. Or you could be working in the automotive industry, playing a crucial role in the booming car industry in 1965. Whether assembling engines or crafting sleek bodywork, you would earn an hourly wage of around $3 to $4, supporting the American dream one car at a time. Although a lot of great music is coming out of Motown from performers such as Marvin Gaye in California from the Beach Boys during May 1965, it is the UK that is dominating the airwaves. Both the fashion and music reflect a heavy British influence. The sleek and contemporary mod subculture is still having a big influence on the fashion scene in 1965. Mods are often seen wearing parkas, shift dresses, and tops with bold colors and prints. They pay attention to details such as decorative buttons on slim-fitting, Italian-cut suits with narrow lapels, flat-front trousers, and Chelsea boots. A distinct bob haircut was also popular as women started to wear pants and short hair. A former mod commented on their hair. Most of us had terrific hair, and you spent a lot of time on it. What you would do was wash your hair, then get a bowl of hot water and put sugar in it. Let the water cool and keep stirring it up, and then plaster the water on your head and shape your hair. We used to leave it on all night. The longer you left it on, the better it was. Keith Richards gives Charlie Watts a mod haircut as they wait backstage for their appearance on Hullabaloo. Mods often congregated at coffee shops late into the night because they stayed open later than bars or public transport, so young people would pile into cities from all around the British countryside. In the UK, you can head over to the Marquee Club to catch the Yardbirds, the Settlers, the Spencer Davis Group, and the Who's live performances. You can also see the Who perform around England at clubs such as the Pavilion in Bath, the Majestic Ballroom in Reading, and the Ricky Tick Club in Windsor, where they are playing their latest single, Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere. They will release their debut album later in 1965. In the UK, you might be working as a retail salesman earning around £15 per week, or secretary earning between £690 to £960 per year. Jobs were often advertised in the papers to specific ages and genders. While you made less money compared to today, you could afford much more without the need for credit. In Patrick Collinson's 2016 article in The Guardian, he explains how his grandfather's 1960s pay as an accounts clerk in London was £1,357 a year. In today's money, that equals a little over £25,000 a year once inflation is taken into account. In 1965, his grandfather was able to buy a new 3-bedroom semi-attached house on the edge of the city. His wife was at home looking after the family of 5. He also had a car, a Ford Popular, and a Philips television. All this from his earned income. You could not afford to buy a home and support a family of 5 on that income today in the US or the UK. The question is, where did we go wrong and how long can we sustain this path of unaffordability we are on? So what might you be watching on your Philips television in May 1965? In the U.S., you would tune into Ed Sullivan, who was hosting Tom Jones performing It's Not Unusual and Dusty Springfield performing All Cried Out.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. Well, baby, I'm all cried out. I'm all cried.
Another popular musical variety show was Shindig, which hosted Howlin' Wolf, who performed while the Rolling Stones looked on in awe at one of their old bluesmen inspirations.
Well, I was in Chicago a little while ago, and I came across this restaurant. I went in, and I found a chap singing the blues. I thought he was fantastic, so I booked him. Tell us something about him, Brian.
Well, when we first started playing together, we started playing because we wanted to play rhythm and blues, and Howlin' Wolf was one of our greatest idols, and it's a great pleasure to find he's been booked on this show tonight. It really is a pleasure.
Thanks to Howlin' Jack Lewis.
So I think it's about time you shut up and we had Howlin' Wolf on stage.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Let's get him on. Howlin' Wolf, bring him on.
How many more years till I have to let you dog me around?
In the UK, you might tune in to Thank Your Lucky Stars, where you could catch acts such as the Dave Clark 5 and the Everly Brothers, or Ready, Steady, Go, which hosted The Who performing while showing off their mod style, as well as the Rolling Stones. On May 9th, the Beatles attend a Bob Dylan concert at the Royal Albert Hall in London. He will have a heavy influence on the changes happening within their songwriting, which are currently emerging. The Rolling Stones begin working on a song that is unknown to the world in May 1965. The riff by Keith Richards will be considered one of the greatest hooks of all time. The song's lyrics refer to sexual frustration and commercialism. On May 12th, the Rolling Stones enter the recording studio to begin recording their iconic song, I Can't Get No Satisfaction. Here are some interesting insights from Van Morrison, Paul McCartney, and Bob Dylan in interviews in May 1965 music publications. Here Comes the Night by Them, with lead singer Van Morrison, is getting a lot of radio play. Van Morrison spoke to the Record Mirror about how they were discovered in Belfast by Jimmy Savile, who reported back to Decca about the band. Van Morrison discusses how he doesn't pay attention to trends and may listen to John Lee Hooker, then put on Tchaikovsky, then Charlie Mingus. He recalls the hellish days of playing 7 days a week in Germany, staying in cheap hotels and having no food before coming to England. In May 1965, Van Morrison is working on writing new songs for them's next album after the success of his last songs Gloria and Here Comes the Night. The Beatles, specifically Paul McCartney, explains how they spend their evenings. The article begins, "It was a typical quiet evening at London's Savoy Hotel. Quiet, that is, until the Beatles turned up to see Bob Dylan. They all trooped down to the restaurant and ordered porridge and pea sandwiches." The article goes on, however, to discuss how they are usually contained indoors and rarely ever get to have a night out. Paul explains how they spend their nights watching movies with their new projectors. "We've all bought 16mm film projectors with sound and everything, and we hire loads of films. It's surprising, but you can get some of the really latest top films. For instance, I've got Top Copy and Tom Jones, and we hire some of Elvis's films too. I like them in the same way that I like Double Your Money. The projectors cost a lot of money, about 200 quid, I think. But they're worthwhile for us at least because we don't get a chance to get out and see these films. John is the really keen one. He has it all organized, showing 2 films a night now. It's just like a cinema around his place. We all sit there, eyes glued to the screen, and he doesn't start showing them until late. Well, after television has finished, and none of us get to bed until fantastically late hours." Paul goes on to discuss some changes to their songwriting and the differences between him and John. "I think that John and I are writing different sort of songs than we were a couple of years back. I can't say whether they're better or worse, but they're certainly different. And that is okay by us because we wouldn't want to stand still to stagnate musically." Bob Dylan's recording manager, Tom Wilson, is interviewed about Dylan's initial approach to recording in the studio. "There's been a lot of changes in Bob Dylan. First off, when we got him in a recording studio, it was pretty chaotic. He'd come in very casually and just start off with a couple of takes. Trouble was, he'd usually forget the words halfway through, or maybe he hadn't even written them all yet. It took hours. Mark you, when he did get the song just right, then it was done in one take every time." Wilson goes on to explain how Dylan changed and now shows up with typewritten songs, very organized and efficient. "You know, Dylan plans the whole recording campaign. He writes it, records it, knows exactly what he wants going on behind him. He even arranges the sleeve pictures for his LPs. He knows himself. Knows he's the only guy in the world who really knows the best way to produce himself. He's quick and sharp and won't argue about it. He just gets it done his way." Dylan added to the article, "I'm not here to analyze anything, just to sing my songs the way I want to people who want to hear me out. If it's only 2 people, well, that's enough."
Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens.
In May 1965, movie theaters filled with people trying to catch the movie, The Sound of Music, based on the 1949 memoir, The Story of the Trapp Family Singers by Maria von Trapp, and is set in Salzburg, Austria. It is a fictional retelling of her experiences as governess to 7 children, her eventual marriage with their father, Captain George von Trapp, and their escape during the Anschluss in 1938.
When the dog bites, when the bee stings, when I'm feeling sad.
The movie will go on to be the highest-grossing film of the year. Most of the soundtrack was written by Rodgers and Hammerstein. The album reached the #1 position on the Billboard 200 that year in the United States. Do you think a musical soundtrack such as The Sound of Music could be as successful today as in 1965, or make it to #1? In May 1965, the beautiful and fashionable Marianne Faithfull met with Bob Dylan, and she left with opinions. At the time, she had this to say about Dylan. "So, typically, young America. Every other word is man, just like in the James Baldwin books." Faithfull later elaborated on her opinion of Dylan, describing him in her autobiography, Faithfull, as nothing less than the hippest person on earth. The zeitgeist streamed through him like electricity. She also recounted their first meeting. "He stared at me for so long I thought I was going to melt." For Bob Dylan's part, he was on tour in the UK and performed his now infamous shows featured in the documentary Don't Look Back. Dylan performed to awe-struck audiences who sat mesmerized during his 65 tour of the UK. What the footage illustrates is that, even if it was only for a little while, Dylan was a guy who knew something that no one else in the room did but was hoping to find out. In the footage, you can see Dylan and Baez work to impress with some vintage Americana with a rendition of Hank Williams' song Lost Highway.
It started going down that lost highway.
In May 1965, the Righteous Brothers hit, Just Once in My Life, is climbing the charts, as is Peter and Gordon's True Love Ways. The Beatles are quickly heading up the charts with their single, Ticket to Ride.
She's got a ticket to ride, and she don't care.
Bob Dylan's Subterranean Homesick Blues is filling the airwaves. Music critic Tim Riley writes, "It's less an indictment of the system than a coil of imagery that spells out how the system hangs itself with the rope it's so proud of." And while there are no music videos yet in May 1965, Dylan films a video that accompanies the song that will go on to be one of the most iconic videos in music history, featuring his lyrics written on cards as he throws them aside and walks away in the end as if they are nothing to him. Dylan's music he is recording sounds like nothing else at the time. He is in the early stages of recording 3 of the most influential rock albums of the 1960s. Dylan is pushing boundaries in popular music, creating a new edgy rock sound, accompanied with his hipster style and indifferent yet confident attitude that will soon influence music and culture. Yet, in contrast, in May 1965, it is Herman's hermit song, Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter, that topped the Billboard charts for 2 weeks.
Mrs. Brown, you've got a lovely daughter. Girls.
Seems the music scene is still in the throes of wholesomeness for the time being, but we will have to see what happens next month in the iconic music scene of 1965. Well, that's it for May 1965. I hope you enjoyed this trip down music history lane, exploring the iconic music scene and other fun and interesting ways in which we used to live as a society. It was a special moment in time when the music scene was dynamic and exploding. How does it stack up to today's music scene? Your feedback is greatly appreciated. Please leave a comment below. Be sure to check the earlier iconic music of 1965 in these videos.